Boom. 2 days in a row, I've been on time. I'm on a roll. And this is me turning over a new leaf. I'm taking my audience seriously. I'm valuing your time as members of this stream and as participants of this live broadcast. I will do everything within my power to try and be on time. I just nullified that by using the word try. There is no try. There's only do in the words of Master Yoda. I will do everything within my power to be on time and to jump on when I say I will jump on. Notwithstanding that this is Simoson Building where nothing works and everything sort of becomes a bit discombobulated, mate. Yeah, so, and also, guys, keep in mind, as I always share with you, you don't know what it's like being me out here for you. It is an up at dawn, pride swallowing siege that I will never fully tell you about, okay? So just keep that in mind when you're dealing with me. All right, guys, jump on here real quick. It's 6:30 p.m. I'm on time. What I need to hear you tell me, guys, is that this broadcast is loud and clear. Although I have to check it on my monitor to be sure. You don't know what it's like being me. Great. Out here for you. We've got a good sound. We got good feed. Please do me a favor, guys, if you could go ahead and share this live, sort of spread it around to people that you think would be interested in this conversation and see if we can get the show on the road. Before I get into my dissertation, I have to make mention, something's been making the rounds on social media, and it's this. Everybody's talking about this Tyler Perry film called Straw. Now, let's be clear. Tyler Perry in the past has given us some really, really good films. Two very notable movies, in my opinion, are For Colored Girls. If you haven't seen For Colored Girls, I think it's called For Colored Girls Only. The one with Janet Jackson in it. Oh, it took me a long time to realize that that was a Tyler Perry film. I didn't know it was Tyler Perry. One of the best movies I've ever seen, For Colored Girls. Well, one of the best Tyler Perry films. Let's be clear, because Tyler he's in a class of his own. He's got his own genre, his own type of filmmaking, But For Colored Girls was one of the best Tyler Perry films I've ever seen. The other one, if you've never seen it, is The Jazzman's Blues. OMG. I was telling my wife last night, she hasn't seen it yet, and I told her, I said, if there was ever a Tyler Perry film that people should watch and watch diligently, and I've seen Jazzman's Blues at least 3-4 times, and that is the telltale sign that you're watching a good film. That's a telltale sign that you've got a nail biter going. If you can sit and watch a movie 3 or 4 times, and in every sitting, you see something different that you didn't notice before. You see the little nuances and the little, not plot twists, but little curves in there that you didn't notice were there before. That is the telltale sign of a brilliant film. Although I must tell you, the greatest movie overall that's ever made, in my view, is The Shawshank Redemption. Not to digress, but I just wanted to throw that in there. But anyway, people are talking about Straw, and this is what I think about this film. My wife and I, we watched it, and I must tell you, while there are a few notable lines and scenes in the film that sort of jerk your emotional strings, pull your emotional string. There are a couple of lines in there that make you shed a tear because so many scenes in there are relatable, in terms of struggle and I mean, talk about having a bad day. Straw is having a bad day on steroids. Anyway, aside from the fact that there were a few good lines and a few good scenes, I will say that the one person that carried the entire film was Taraji P. Henson. I mean, literally, she had that thing on her. Sure, it was an ensemble cast, and the talk show host, what's her name, Cherie, she did a good job. Although I must say, I felt that the girl that played the detective was miscast. If the moment she's introduced in the film, her first few lines, her first few scenes, I didn't think, sort of that role didn't fit her. Although at some stage during the film, when she went into the negotiation portion of the movie, she sort of came into her own. But initially, the initial introduction of her character, I felt was miscast. That's what I feel. I don't know about you guys, but that's how I felt. And overall, it was an interesting film. If I were to score it, I will score it this way. I would give it a very strong 4.5 out of 10, only because Taraji P. Henson sort of carried the whole film all by herself. Okay? But I would give it a 6.5 out of 10, taking into account the ensemble cast. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. If you have anything that's different from what I've given you, that's your privilege, and you're fine to do that. Okay, guys, very quickly, I have to tell you, as many of you know, we're talking about ECL. The question tonight is, was ECL broke when he passed away? Now, I know, and I'm not saying this to sound facetious. I'm not trying to sound coy. I'm simply having a conversation that most Zambians don't like having. Zambians don't like talking about death. Zambians don't like talking about the inevitable. Zambians love to bury our heads in the sand until we are confronted with our fears. But me talking about this doesn't mean that I disrespect Lungu or disrespect the family. We are having an honest conversation based upon the narrative that's been spun, not only on social media, but on traditional media as well. Many of you know, earlier today, Makebi Zulu, who was a friend of mine, for all intent and purposes, him and I have a love-hate relationship. One day he loves me, another time he doesn't like me too much, and vice versa. But the truth is, Makebi Zulu stood up today in South Africa, and he said a lot of things that were simply not true, okay? And we're going to go through them. First of all, Makebi sort of implies, he suggests, he sort of hints that the late and sixth president Lungu was broke, was financially strained, struggled financially. My brothers and sisters, that is simply not true. We all know that when President Lungu came into the fore of politics and served this nation over a period of about a little less than 7 years, according to my calculation, about 7 years. From the time he entered the presidency to the time that he was voted out in 2021, during this period, the Lungu family amassed a colossal amount of wealth, a colossal amount of unexplained wealth that they could not account for, wealth that they couldn't sort of leave a paper trail to. So to answer the question, did ECL die broke? The answer is a resounding, emphatic no, he didn't. He died quite liquid, and he died as a man of means. You see, the reason Makebi Zulu and company are trying to peddle this false narrative, Kuti ECL struggled financially, ECL didn't have any money to meet his medical financial obligations, is simply not true. That narrative plays into this idea that Walungu was victimized by the current administration. We all know that that is absolutely not true. When it comes to Walungu going to South Africa for medical checkups and medical attention, we know that Walungu has been going to South Africa since 2015 for things like that. The only anomaly that arose was when he tried to leave the country without the government knowing. There's a procedure when it comes to former heads of state that leave this nation. You can't just leave up and leave when you want, you know, especially in the climate that we're in now, especially given the issues that Walungu and his family were facing. It's not practical to sit and say Walungu could have just left Zambia anytime he wanted. No, that's not how it works, especially when you become a person of interest after leaving State House, after leaving the presidency, facing the legal troubles that he was facing. It simply was not possible to just up and leave. There is and there was a procedure, and anyone that didn't follow that procedure was questioned, and that's all that happened. So it's not true that the government placed a travel ban. That is the wrong terminology. That is the wrong terminology. There was no travel ban. A travel ban means you can never leave the country at any time for any reason. That's not true. What is true is that Walungu, because of the legal issues that he was facing, there was a certain procedure he had to follow. In a sense, in a word, he had to get permission, specific permission, in a specific way for him to travel. And if that process was not followed, then, you know, there were roadblocks that were placed in his way until he fulfilled that process for him to gain permission to leave the country. So it is wrong, it is disingenuous, it is misleading to say there was a travel ban. There was never a travel ban. There was never. What was there was, if you want to leave the country, let us know, and this is the procedure to follow. Once you follow this procedure, you'll be allowed to go. That's all it was. You know, of course, that narrative doesn't play into the hands of the opposition. It is much better for the narrative that the government placed a travel ban on Walungu. That is a better narrative for the opposition, because they can use that to their advantage. They can use that and scream bloody murder and say this is political persecution. You know, so, and guys, understand, this is all about politics. Everything that's happening now is all about politics. It's about political advantage. It's about political angst. It's about political skullduggery. It's about political machinations. It's about using politics to create this sense of sympathy amongst the electorate for your advantage. That's all it is. And they will stop at nothing. This is what they do. This is the modus operandi in particular of the PF. So the answer to the question, did ECL die broke? The answer is no. He died a man that was very liquid. He had countless properties, not just here, but abroad. He had a consistent channel of money that was going to him and his family. So it is wrong, misleading, and disingenuous to imply Kuti he was broke. He wasn't broke. And Makebi Zulu is lying through his teeth, and the truth is not in him. Okay? Makebi. The next question is, when will the body arrive? Now, let's be clear. To you and I, Walungu is a former head of state and should be regarded as such. But to the family, he's a father, he's an uncle. And so it's very difficult to sit and listen to people talk about your father, your uncle, your loved one, as if he's some type of commodity, as if he's cargo. I would imagine that is very difficult. And I can only begin to imagine how the Lungu family feels when they read the comment, and I'm praying and hoping that they don't read commentary, because the worst possible thing you can do in this particular climate is to sit and read comments. The things that people say on social media are so repulsive, they're so repugnant that they would make a billy goat puke if comments were food. Okay, so and I said all of that to say this to you and I: the former president is a former head of state, but to the family, that is their father, that's their uncle. So that hits, for lack of a better word, that hits differently when you hear people talking about your father as if he's cargo, you know, as if he's katundu. It's very painful. But here's the thing, guys. It doesn't matter how much the PF dance around the issue of when the president's body will arrive in Zambia. The fact still remains, within this week, we don't know the day, but within this week, 7 days, 7 days will not elapse. Within this week, the former and 6 late presidents' remains will land in Zambia, and within this week, he will be buried. There is no sense whatsoever to delay, to place in the path of the inevitable roadblocks that would lead to the delay of a burial of Walungu's remains. That is a given. No matter what they say, no matter how much they try and tiptoe through the tulips, the bottom line is that within this week, his body has to arrive. Within this week, his body has to be placed, has to be laid to rest. That's the reason they call it that. That's the reason that in reference to the deceased, that's the reason we say laid to rest. Because as long as the body is not buried, there is no rest in terms of the family. There is no closure. The word rest comes from the word closure. There's a sense of closure when you bury your loved one. There's a sense of angst when you don't bury them. You know, I mean, imagine people that have heard that their loved one has died, but they don't know where the body is. They have no idea where the remains are. There is no closure there. But when you place your loved one in the ground and you commit them to where they came from dust we came and dust we shall return. When we do that, it is an act and the beginning of closure. It is the beginning of healing. When you place someone in the ground and place them, lay them to rest, commit them to rest. And the PF know this. The PF know that the longer they tiptoe through the tulips, the longer they keep talking about, we want to know, we don't want the state to be. All of those tactics are going to be for naught the moment that body lands here in Zambia. All these machinations that are being created by the PF. And we all know, and allow me to echo the sentiments of Kavindele. What is happening now in the PF is that they are trying to jostle for position while Walungu has not been laid to rest yet. That is the goal. The goal is for the candidates, the potential candidates who want to place their names forward for leadership, because they know in their minds, they think that if they get the presidency of the PF, then they will get an automatic sympathy vote from the nation. It doesn't always work that way. And it doesn't work that, and it's not going to work that way in this instance. Now, guys, let me explain this to you. There are certain people that are jostling for power that will never get it. And I will name 2 of them. There are people within the conclave of the PF that have placed themselves in their minds, they have strategically place themselves in a position where they think that they will get the position of president once Lungu is laid to rest. In fact, I'll name three people. I'll name three people. Three people that are jostling for this position of presidency within the PF that won't get it. They will not get it. I don't know who will get the presidency of the PF, but I know who won't. Let me say that again. I have no idea who is going to be named as the leader of the PF after Lungu is laid to rest. But I do know who will not get it. And I'm going to name the three. So go ahead. Before I name them, I want you to tell me who the three are. I have a list of three people that I know are not going to be named as president of the PF after Lungu's laid to rest. And they are as follows. These are the people that I think will not be named as president. Number one, Harry Calabar. Harry Calabar will not be named as president of the PF after Lungu's laid to rest, simply because Harry Calabar stood on this platform of a squeaky clean image. He talked about how he left the PF because the corruption in the PF was so foul, the stench of corruption was so putrid that Harry Calabar couldn't stand the stench of corruption within the PF. It was so bad, it was so repugnant, it was so repudiating, it was so off-putting that he had to leave the party. So it stands to reason that you can't say there was corruption in the PF and then go back and put your name forward to lead the same party that you said was corrupt to high heaven. The Word of God says it this way: can a dog return to its vomit? The answer is no. So Harry Calabar is out. KBF, completely out. KBF is a political opportunist. KBF will not see the seat of the presidency of the PF simply because, number one, he was one of the loudest whistleblowers that went on every large platform that denounced ECL. He called him corrupt. He said that the PF was full of prostitutes and call girls and hussies and slay queens, and that the party was just an absolute mess. So he is not qualified to go back with his tail between his legs and say, I can lead the party. Not only that, but KBF is on record at implying and hinting, Kuti, ECL whispered in his ear that he should carry the baton, that he should sort of engage into continuity as far as the party is concerned. That's what he hinted. And KBF, being a lawyer, he was trying to play around with the words, but we could see right through him. We knew what he was doing as viewers. If you watch that video where he sort of implied that he was talking to ECL right before ECL died, and sort of he had privileged information as to what ECL was thinking and the trajectory that ECL felt that the party should go on. All of that is just lies, because at this stage, anyone who quotes ECL posthumously, okay? You know what that word means, posthumously. That's a British pronunciation of the word. The Americans say posthumously, the British say posthumously. Anyone who quotes ECL posthumously, meaning anyone who says, no, before ECL died, he said thus and so, etc. Before ECL died, don't listen to those people. All of them, they are lying. Because in his death, these PF vagabonds are trying to milk ECL for all he's worth even in his death, even to the point where they will claim, to quote him, Kuti, before my ECO died, he was whispering in my ear and he told me thus and so, etc. Don't listen to any of those people. They didn't talk to ECL, and even if they did talk to ECL, he didn't say what they're claiming. Ubu fifia wake up, wake. Those are two. Number three, the person that will never get the presidency of the PF, Mr. Given Lubinda. He won't get it. He won't get it because in this climate, in this political climate, it's very clear that the one within the PF, the one who is so desperate to disparage and to discredit and to soil this administration purely for political sympathy and for political advantage and expedience, that person's heart is in the wrong place. Those are the people we don't need. We don't need people that use deception to get positions of power. Ooh, that's a good one there, boy. God just dropped that in my heart. Let me, guys, type that in the comments. We don't need leaders that use deception to gain political power. Ooh, that's a good one there, boy. You can't use deception by soiling the current administration for the pure purpose of gaining power. Then you're not in it for the right reasons. You don't want to serve, you want to rule. And everybody knows in this dispensation there's no such thing as ruling. This country is not a monarchy. We don't have any monarchs. We don't have kings and queens. We've got a president that has a tenure. The presidency has a tenure. There's a limit to how long you can serve. We need people who want to be president to serve this nation, to serve the betterment of our people, not to serve, not to get in to revenge, because that's the whole modus operandi of the PF. The whole thing that they're doing is based on revenge, retribution, attrition, revenge. Get them so that we can place a noose around their necks, throw them into God's sea of forgetfulness and vanquish them. That's the whole spirit of the PF. That describes the spirit of the PF. Anger, revenge, insults, violence, retribution, attrition. We don't need those types of leaders. I don't want a leader that wants to be president because he wants to revenge. What the hell, man? We don't want that. So those three people, put a line through their names instead of under them. Those will not be the president of the PF. Those are not going to be the contenders in 2026. Those, in fact, are going to fall by the wayside. They're going to be lone rangers, lone wolves in the wilderness. All right. Lastly, what will happen after the burial? Honey, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. What's going to happen within the PF after Lungu is laid to rest is going to make the film 300 look like a picnic on a Sunday afternoon. Those jokers are going to jostle for power so fierce, so fearless, so fierce. What am I trying to say? Fiercefully. So fiercefully, not fearlessly, fiercefully, that they will destroy each other. They're going to be jumping out of windows. The PF are going to be very lucky if they come out of this unscathed. Because unity is not their strong suit. PF's unity, tranquility, cohesiveness is not their strong suit. They don't know how to do cohesiveness. They don't know. The message they preach is division, violence, and insults. So those three ingredients, Very difficult to have a political party then that comes out unscathed. The PF are going to be their own undoing. There, I said it. They're going to be their own undoing. They are going to be the death of themselves. Say that in the comments. They are going to be the death of themselves. All right. Thought I'd share that with you guys. Thanks for watching. Bye.